everyone. In today's video, we are going to talk about ReLU activation function, and we are going to discuss mathematical intuition, graphical intuition, derivative of ReLU function, advantages and disadvantages of using ReLU, use case, as in where is ReLU used, and Python implementation. If you're new here, then I am Radhika and I post a video on machine learning and deep learning topics every Friday. If you have not subscribed already, then please do consider subscribing. And now without further ado, let's get started. Talking about the mathematical intuition of ReLU function. So ReLU stands for rectified linear unit. And the formula for ReLU function is f of x is equal to max of x or 0, whichever is bigger. So we can rewrite this as f of x is equal to x if x is greater than 0 and 0 if x is less than or equal to 0. So it is just doing a comparison of whether x is greater than 0, then it would be the value x. Otherwise, it will be value 0 in the negative region or when x is 0. Now let us talk about the derivative of ReLU function. So I'll just write that over here. Derivative of ReLU f dash of x. This is the notation that we use to write derivatives. So f dash of x would be equal to 1 if x is greater than 0 or 0 if x is less than or equal to 0. So derivative of ReLU function is 1 when x is in positive region, and when x is in negative region or x is equal to 0, then derivative of ReLU function is equal to 0. Now let us try to plot these as graphs so that we can better understand and visualize this. If I try to plot this, then this is our y-axis, this is our x-axis, and ReLU function, when x is in the negative region, so this is x. When x is in the negative region, then ReLU function is equal to 0. That's why we will have this kind of a line. And then when x is in the positive region, then f of x is equal to x. So this would be, yellow graph is f of x. So this yellow graph is f of x, which is our ReLU function, which is equal to x when x is greater than 0, and when x is less than or equal to 0, then we have 0, and that's how we have depicted it. Now if we have to get the graph of derivative of ReLU function, then that graph would be something like this. So when x is less than or equal to 0, then we say it is like this. Now ReLU function is not differentiable at 0, at exactly 0, but practically we just assume that using if-else function we say that when x is equal to 0, then its value should be 0, but otherwise in true terms it is not differentiable at exactly 0 when x is equal to 0. So the graphical representation of derivative of ReLU function would look something like this. So this is 0 and this is 1. Is derivative of ReLU function. So derivative of ReLU is f dash x is equal to, it is 1 when x is greater than 0. That's why we have 1 over here. So in positive region it is always 1, and it is 0 when x is less than or equal to 0. I have not marked till 0 over here because I'm showing this in true sense, but in practical purposes like in Python implementations we can say that when x is equal to 0, then its derivative is also 0, so that it becomes differentiable, and this will help us during backpropagation when we have to find the gradient of activation function. So if I have to write values here, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and this is in the negative region, -1, -2, -3 like that. Let us now talk about the advantages of using ReLU function. So the first advantage is that it is a non-linear activation function. And because it is a non-linear activation function, it is able to capture non-linear relationship that exists between data. And this is how our neural network will be able to understand the complex patterns which follow non-linear relationships. So this is the first advantage. Second is, it is computationally efficient. Why? Because here we are only doing a comparison operation, whether x is greater than 0 or not. This is the only simple operation that is happening. If it is greater than 0, then x is chosen, otherwise 0 is chosen. So it is computationally efficient. If you remember, in our sigmoid activation function, we had to calculate e to the power x. That was computationally expensive. But here in ReLU function, because we are just doing this comparison operation, that's why it is computationally efficient. Third and the most important advantage of using ReLU function is we do not have problem of vanishing gradient. So no vanishing gradient problem. If you don't know what vanishing gradient problem is, then please watch my previous video of sigmoid activation function where I have clearly explained what vanishing gradient problem is and why is it caused. But here I will give you a very quick summary. So in sigmoid function, when we were using sigmoid function as an activation function, then we know that this is a saturating function. Again, if you don't know what a saturating function is, then please watch my previous video of sigmoid activation function. So now this is a saturating function, and because it is a saturating function, we know that the output is bounded, and it is bounded between 0 and 1. Also, its derivative is a very small value. Derivative lies between 0 and 0.25. So now when we are doing backpropagation, so let us take an example. So here I'm taking a network where we have two x1 and x2, and we have a neuron in the middle, and this is our output neuron. So output will be our y hat, and then these two are connected to our hidden layer neuron using weights w1 and w2, and then we have another weight which is connecting our hidden layer with the output neuron, which has weight w3. We have bias for this neuron as b1, bias for this neuron as b2. And now I'm calling the output from this neuron as O1 and output from this neuron as O2, although it is called y hat, but I'm taking this as O2 for consistency. Now, when we are doing backpropagation, let's say we were updating W1 weight. So we know that in general sense, weight updation formula is W new is equal to W old minus eta, which is the learning rate, derivative of loss function with respect to W old. Now suppose we were updating W1. So our W1 new would be equal to W1 old minus eta, derivative of loss function with respect to W1 old. Now let us consider this term only, because this is the most important term to understand vanishing gradient problem. So in this term, we can write this as derivative of loss function with respect to W1 is equal to, we know that this loss function is dependent on O2, so we can write this as derivative of loss function with respect to O2. This O2 in turn is dependent on this O1, so derivative of O1, and then this O1 is dependent on this W1, so derivative of W1. So this is how chain rule for backpropagation works. Now in this chain rule, if you look at, let's say, this output O2, we can pick any of these. I'm just picking O2 here. So we can write this O2 as, if you look here, O2 is output of this neuron, input of this neuron is O1, and weight is W3. So we can write this as O1 multiplied by W3 plus bias to this neuron, which is B2. So O2 can be rewritten as this. And on top of this, we have to apply activation function as well, which is ReLU in this case, because our neuron performs two operations. We know that a neuron performs two operations. First is summation, and then we apply an activation function. In our case, activation function is ReLU activation function. So O2 is finally this value. Now, if you look here, what we are essentially doing in just this particular term, we can rewrite this term as del O2, derivative of O2 with respect to O1 is equal to derivative of ReLU function of O1 multiplied by W3 plus B2 with respect to O1. Now if you look here, derivative of ReLU function, we know that this derivative is, we know f dash x is equal to 1 when x is greater than 0, and when x is less than or equal to 0, it is 0. So when we are considering, let's say we are considering this positive scenario, then this will always be 1 no matter what value of x is in the positive region. So because it is always 1, we do not have a vanishing gradient problem. Whereas in case of sigmoid function, if we were using sigmoid, then the derivative was between 0 and 0.25. And because it was a very small value, when we were multiplying these very small values multiple times in a deep neural network, then this was causing vanishing gradient problem. But in this case, we will not have a vanishing gradient problem because our derivative is not a very small value. It is 1. There is another problem which is called as dying ReLU, which comes up because derivative of ReLU function is 0, but we are going to discuss that in the disadvantages section. But from here, I hope it is clear that why we cannot have vanishing gradient problem, because derivative is 1, and when we multiply 1 by anything, it will not reduce, it will stay the same value, and because it is not reducing, that's why we will not have a vanishing gradient problem, because this value will not become a very small value, and when this value will not become a very small value, we will have updates in weights, so our learning will continue. When this becomes a very small value, like in case of sigmoid function, then it becomes a problem because then our W new becomes to W old. But for ReLU function, this will not become very small, and that's why our learning will continue and we will never have a vanishing gradient problem. Now the fourth advantage of using ReLU function is it has faster convergence as compared to sigmoid function. And the last advantage of ReLU function is it has sparse activation. Why sparse activation? Why sparse activation? Because when x is negative, then its value, like the output, is 0, and when output is 0, then this creates sparse activations in the neural network because output of those neurons would be equal to 0, and this will ultimately create a sparse activation. And what sparse activation does is it helps in efficient and fast computations. Now next, let us talk about the disadvantages of ReLU activation function, and the first major disadvantage is dying ReLU problem. This is also called as dying neuron problem. Now let us try to understand this. What exactly is this? So let us consider our example that we used before for backpropagation. So we have two inputs, x1 and x2. We have a hidden layer with one neuron and an output layer with a single neuron. These are connected to hidden layer via weights W1 and W2, and then this is connected to the output layer using weight W3. Output from this neuron is called as O1, output from this neuron is called as O2, which is also called as bi hat, and the bias to this neuron is B1 and bias to this neuron is B2. Now let us try to do backpropagation. Now you would know that for backpropagation, our formula is W new is equal to W old minus eta, which is the learning rate, derivative of loss function with respect to W old. So similarly, if we have to update W1, then our W1 new would be equal to W1 old minus eta, derivative of loss function with respect to W1 old. Now again, we are just going to look at this part of equation. So we can write this dl, derivative of loss function with respect to W1 old, is equal to derivative of loss is dependent on the final output O2. This O2 is dependent on O1, and then this O1 is dependent on W1. So we write derivative of loss function with respect to O2, derivative of O2 with respect to O1, and then derivative of O1 with respect to W1. So this is how chain rule will work for backpropagation. Now again, I'm just looking at this particular term, And for this particular term, we have O2. So O2 is again output of this neuron, and the input to this neuron is O1 with weight W3 and a bias B2. So suppose we have ReLU activation function over here. So we will have O1 multiplied by W3 plus B2, and then we will pass this to ReLU activation function. So this will be the final output of O2. Now again, if we look here, then we can rewrite this derivative of O2 with respect to derivative of O1 as derivative of ReLU of O1 multiplied by W3 plus B2 divided by derivative of O1 with respect to O1. So this is exactly what this equation is. Now we know that for ReLU function, its derivative is either 0 or 1. If x is greater than 0, then it is 1. If x is less than or equal to 0, then it is equal to 0. So suppose that in this network, here we obtained a 0. So this whole term would be equal to 0, this full term, which means this full term is 0. When this full term is 0, then this would mean W1 new is equal to W1 old, which means there is no learning happening. And when there is no learning happening, this neuron will always remain 0 throughout the back propagation and forward propagation, like throughout the training process. And because this will always be 0, this is called as dying ReLU problem. Once the output becomes 0, it will always be 0. So this is what is dying ReLU problem, and because of dying ReLU problem, our weights will not update, which means our network will not learn. So this is one of the major problems with ReLU. Now the second disadvantage with ReLU function is its output is non-zero centered. You know that in the negative region, it is always 0, and in the positive region, it is always increasing. It is not zero centered. There are no negative values that get outputted from this ReLU function. So that's why it is a non-zero centered function. And because it is a non-zero centered function, it makes it harder for network to learn. Why? Because the gradients. So the gradient updates tend to push the weights in one direction, because we don't have any negative value to cancel its effect. So the gradient is pushed in one direction, and this causes zigzag updates during gradient descent, and then because of this, training is slower. So this is another disadvantage of using a ReLU function. Next disadvantage is it is not differentiable at 0. Which makes it harder during back propagation. But in Python implementation, we can say that if x is equal to 0, then its derivative is also 0. We can use if-else statements to make this happen. So disadvantage is it is not differentiable at 0, but we have a workaround using if-else logic. Next, let us talk about the use case of ReLU function. And ReLU is used in hidden layers. Why? Because it is not having any vanishing gradient problem. Although it has dead neuron problem, but it does not have a vanishing gradient problem. So we can use this in hidden layers. Let us now look at the Python implementation of ReLU. Now let us try to see ReLU function in action. So I'm going to create a function definition for ReLU function, and it will take one input as x. It's just gonna be a single number, and we just need to do a comparison operation here. So I'm going to say if x is less than or equal to 0, then return 0. Else, in all other conditions, we just have to return whatever x is. So in positive case, we just have to return the number itself. Now after this function definition, let us try to use this. So I'm going to call ReLU, and let's try to do it for 100. So we know that the answer should come out as 100 itself. Let's see. Yes, that's true. Now let us do it for a negative number. Let's say I'm doing minus 2000. And for this, the answer is 0, which is correct. And let us do it for another edge case, which is 0 itself. And this should also turn out as 0, and it is coming as 0. So this is functioning perfectly. Now let us try to do the same thing but for a list or an array of numbers. Here we were just giving one number to ReLU function. It was giving an output, but let's say that we have a list of numbers or an array of numbers, and for that we have to apply this ReLU function. So how that is going to work? So for this I'm going to use vectorize operation from NumPy library. So I'm going to import NumPy as NP, and I'm going to vectorize this ReLU function that we created above. So using NumPy, so I'm calling this ReLU vectorized, and this would be equal to np.vectorize. We are going to use this function, and I'm going to pass the ReLU function over here that we created above. Now I'm going to create a 1D array. So I'm calling this A1, and I'm just adding some random numbers over here. And I'm also creating a 2D array. So again, I'm adding some random numbers here. So 98 minus 254, 56 and 2. So I've created a 1D array and a 2D array. Now we can just directly pass these arrays to this ReLU vectorized, and this ReLU function will be applied on each of these numbers in the array. We don't have to run the loop because we have vectorized this ReLU function. So I'm just going to say ReLU vectorized, and then I'm going to pass A1, and the output, if you can see, for 100 it is 100, for minus 22 it is 0, 7 is 7, 0 is again 0, and a negative number comes out as 0. So this is working perfectly fine, and let's do it for A2 as well. So for A2, for 0 we are getting 0, for minus 22 it is 0, 53 it is 53, 63 is 63. Then in the second part we have 98, then 0 for minus 22, 54, then 56, and then 2. So this is running perfectly fine. Now we can also use the ReLU function that is defined in PyTorch and TensorFlow library. So let's try to understand how we can use PyTorch ReLU function which is present in PyTorch. So I'm going to give this heading PyTorch. Now first we have to import two things from PyTorch. So from Torch I'm going to import neural network module, which contains the layers and activation functions, and also a function called as from NumPy. This function from NumPy will convert a NumPy array into a tensor, which is PyTorch tensor. So I'm going to again use the two arrays that we defined earlier, A1 and A2. So let us first convert these into PyTorch tensors. So for this, I'm going to say A1 PyTorch tensor is equal to from NumPy, this function that we have imported earlier from PyTorch, we're going to pass A1, and similarly A2 PyTorch tensor equal to from NumPy A2. So we have converted these into tensors. Now from NN module of Torch we can have the ReLU function. So I'm going to define this ReLU as ReLU underscore PyTorch to differentiate from the other ReLU functions that we have created above. And for this we can just use NN dot ReLU, which is already available. Okay, we just have to write this from Torch import neural network, and the error is expected np.nd array. Okay, let's convert this into an nd array. Let us convert A1 and A2 into NumPy arrays. So A1, I'm just going to write it as np.array A1, and A2 is equal to np.array A2. And now I'm going to run this and it should work fine. I have misspelled this over here, so let's do it now. Now we have created ReLU function using PyTorch, and now we can easily use this ReLU underscore PyTorch. Now we are going to convert these both sensors into ReLU outputs. So for that we can say A1 PyTorch output is equal to the relu function that we have created. So relu underscore PyTorch. And then I'm going to pass A1 PyTorch tensor. Similarly, A2 PyTorch output is equal to relu underscore PyTorch, the function that we have created for PyTorch relu function, and A2 underscore PyTorch underscore tensor. Now that we have these two, let's try to print these out. So A1 output, it is exactly the same as what we got over here. And let's do it for A2 as well. So A2 output 005363 980562, 005363 980562. These are same. So we have used PyTorch tensor, PyTorch relu function to get these outputs. Now let us try to do the same thing using TensorFlow library. So I'm just going to write using TensorFlow. Again, we have to do some imports. So I'm doing from TensorFlow, again the NN module. We have to just import from TensorFlow, import NN, which is the neural network module. And we are also going to import convert to tensor, because we'll have to convert our ND array into our NumPy array into a tensor. So convert to tensor. Now again the same set of operations. First let us convert them. So A1 TensorFlow tensor is equal to convert to tensor, and we're going to pass our A1. It is already a NumPy array because we converted it earlier into a NumPy array, so it should be fine. Then A2 TensorFlow tensor is equal to convert to tensor, and this time we're going to pass A2. And now again we just have to define our relu function as well. So I'm going to say relu TensorFlow is equal to NN dot relu. And now let's try to use this. So A1 tensor output is equal to, we're going to use this relu TensorFlow and pass A1 TensorFlow tensor to it. And then for A2 tensor output, again we're going to use relu underscore TensorFlow, and we're going to pass A2 underscore TensorFlow underscore tensor. And now let us just print these outputs and see if they match with the previous outputs. So 100 0 7 0 0, 100 0 7 0 0, yes, that's correct. And then for A2 tensor 0 0 53 63 98 0 56 2, 98 0 56 2, yes, that exactly matches. So this is how we can use relu function. I'm always looking to improve, so I would really appreciate your feedback. How was the presentation? Was it clear? Easy to follow? Let me know in the comments what worked well and what I can do better for future videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next one.